I have something to confess to you guys. I'm a sensitive white guy in his 20s. It may come as a shock to you when I say that Silent Hill 2 is one of my favorite games of all time. I know, it's very surprising. I can barely stomach it myself. I have to stop myself from writing a video essay every time a game makes me cry. This isn't a video essay on Silent Hill 2. That's already a saturated market, and do you really want to hear another Zoomer talk about how it's peak? Everyone and their fucking dog knows how good this game is. The road is well traveled. I wouldn't be adding much. Anyway, just know that I'm a massive nerd for this series, and I'm very attached to Silent Hill 2 in particular. So, a couple years ago, when we learned that Bloober Team was developing a remake, my reaction was very normal and justified. To say I dislike Bloober Team's games would be an understatement. Layers of Fear blows ass. I know for a fact that I've played Observer, but I genuinely don't remember any of it. Just like the reboot movie, Blair Witch was a total fucking mess that misses the entire appeal of the original film. And the medium was seemingly specifically designed to piss me off. Just slapping Beksinski and a Kiriyama Oka's name on it, so you hopefully don't see how shit the game is. Oh, and the game heavily implies that abuse victims will inevitably abuse others, and that the only way that the character Lily can be freed from the trauma her sexual abuse inflicted on her, physically manifested as a demon mind you, is to die, equating a broken child suffering from horrific trauma to the lit fuse of a bomb and a bullet to the head to a pair of wet fingers, while all but explicitly defending the actions of the pedophile who hurt her as the inevitable end of a domino effect started by his own childhood abuse. The ending may be ambiguous as to if Lily dies or not, but the fact that killing her is even entertained as the answer to her situation is willfully ignorant at best and seemingly damn near malicious at worst. In any case, the screen still cuts to black and a gunshot still rings out. Aside from Bloober Team's horror portfolio being plagued with tropey shock value schlock that leans so hard on being like other influential works that they forget how to use their own legs half the time, their storied history of grossly fumbling sensitive topics like mental illness, abuse, sexual assault, and suicide left me with very little hope that their recreation of one of the most seminal and revered games of all time could be up to snuff. Through all the admittedly hammy moments and janky controls, Silent Hill 2 is a mature exploration of the very themes Bloober Team fails to properly comprehend. An uncanny, fog-drenched town inhabited by the soured flesh of protagonist James Sunderland's unprocessed trauma and sin provides the perfect setting for a journey that forces him to face what he's done again and again and again, until he finally recognizes it and acts upon it. The method in which he does this varies based on the player's actions, but throughout the game it's made clear that your trauma is not your end. You are not called by Silent Hill for summary execution. You are called there because you have something to face and the town will show it to you. You have the agency to make decisions and heal throughout the whole process. In Silent Hill 2, while the character Angela Orozco, a teenage girl, successfully confronts the source of her heartbreaking sexual abuse in the form of the abstract daddy, the weight of her misplaced guilt and self-loathing imposed on her by her mother ends up becoming a burden she just can't continue carrying, leading her to become forever consumed by her own living hell, such as the same horrific fate that too many victims like her suffer. Comparing Angela to Lily, we can see that while both characters ultimately fall victim to horrible ends, Angela's was the product of so many things, internal and external, that pressed on her mind for years until she couldn't hold them up anymore. She has no support structure to help her, and in the end she feels that nothing can. Angela's assumed death is a pure tragedy, portrayed by people who knew what they wanted to say and how to say it. Lily's abuse created the demonic entity known as the Maw, which can escape and wreak havoc on the world at large at any moment, leading to what the game shows as a cycle of abuse which can only be stopped by killing the source or killing yourself so you don't get possessed and suffer the consequences. These are fundamentally opposite and incongruent views on a very serious issue. One game treats pedophilia and child sexual abuse use with maturity, respect, and gives it the space it needs to become a natural part of the work without being gratuitous, while the other includes it for shock value and empty offers of solidarity, taking a childlike approach to an adult subject. Angela and Lily is just one example out of many against Bloober's approach to writing sensitive material, but I think it's the greatest example of just how tilted it is. I can see what they're going for. The potential for a competent metaphor and symbolism is there, but Bloober genuinely just doesn't have the eye for it yet. And that kind of sauce really only comes from experience, research, and time. This studio shot up the horror game ladder so quickly, working with big IPs and even bigger names, that these things just kind of fell to the wayside, and the work suffers for it. It's sad. I don't want to hate these games. There's some real talent and effort on display in each of them, but nothing about them sticks, and they bite off far, far more than they can ever hope to chew. And with this public perception of the studio's output, Konami still dropped Silent Hill 2 of all fucking games in their lap. I see that so many people at Bloober are massive fans of the game, and that's great. I can only imagine what it would be like to work on a series that you hold dearly. But for the sake of the remake being a commercial product, I can really only see it as handing a kid the keys to a car. It's not impossible for them to drive it home safely and finally win everyone over, become kings of the fucking gaming world, but that doesn't mean that it's probable. I'm not against the idea of Silent Hill 2 getting remade. Even as a diehard fan, I fully agree that there are things that could be better in the original release. Most things, including Eddie, could be less on the nose with a sledgehammer. A lot of the object puzzles are really not that intuitive. Why the fuck do you fight like 5 abstract daddies in the hotel? That's stupid. And oh my god, even for a survival horror game where the combat is supposed to be clunky and slow, sometimes this game just takes the fucking piss, and the camera does not help most of the time. The ideal of remaking a piece of media is that you get to go back in, cut the fat, remove everything that doesn't work while improving the things that do, and give the project a fresh coat of paint while staying in line with the original vision, reintroducing something to a new generation of people who either haven't seen or couldn't get into the a new generation of people who either haven't seen or couldn't get into the original. There are plenty of remakes of already good things that are much better than the original. The thought of there being a world where there are 2 amazing versions of Silent Hill 2, where the remake brings in so many new fans, reigniting discussion and appreciation for such a beautiful work of art, that's a world I definitely want to be in, even if I would probably prefer the original. Not everyone has functioning 6th generation consoles. Buying a physical copy today is a fucking joke. The HD collection infamously sucks. The original game isn't for sale on digital platforms, and while the fan-made enhanced edition is easily the best way to play the game nowadays, not everyone wants to set up a mod for an abandonware PC version. Having a new, readily available version of the game for modern hardware with these ideal traits of a remake sounds like a win-win to me. But remember, this only works if the re-release is good. And, it looks alright now. After a rough couple of trailers, including a tone-deaf combat trailer of all fucking things, which Konami allegedly stitched together from old build footage since they literally cannot do anything correctly, a full gameplay showcase of the remake was shown off during the 2nd annual Silent Hill transmission stream. With almost 14 minutes of real, proper footage of the game to chew on, with only months to go before release, it finally feels like the proverbial fog has faded a bit, allowing us to see a far clearer picture of what we're getting ourselves into. And honestly, after watching it several times, applying my obnoxious fanboy eye to every little thing that catches it, I have to say that I'm finally cautiously optimistic. And really, that's not a small accomplishment, considering just how black-pilled I was until now. Let's quickly go through point by point of what I find important to talk about. First, let's get the obvious out of the way. The game looks fucking beautiful, and the town itself looks spot on. Bloober has always had talented talented artists and designers, and they seem to be utilizing Unreal Engine 5 in all the right ways. The fog especially is gorgeous and exactly on model. I'm also particularly fond of these big swarms of bugs, which I assume are Niagara particle effects, like in the original Unreal 5 reveal video. So, at least in case of the absolute worst, we'll have a really nice version of Silent Hill to walk around in. The sound design also is right on the money, but that should be no surprise considering that Akira Yamaoka is back on board for the project. He's back in his home court, and he's obviously flexing hard. The music, of course, fucks. I'm sure most songs from the OST will get some kind of remix or re-recording, but those bones are so solid anyway that I have no worries about them being changed beyond recognition. I could go either way on finding the radio in an abandoned house instead of the tunnel, but I don't like the changes to the lying figures. Their new zippers just feel slapped on, just in case you didn't get what they were supposed to look like. Also, how the fuck does this thing grapple you? It doesn't have usable arms. I get that they're doing a Resident Evil remake thing where enemies can grab you and take a chunk of your health if you're not being careful, but with the lying figure specifically, it just looks really frustrating. I know that James is kind of a moron caught in a trance-like fugue state the whole game, but every time I'm grabbed by one of these, I can tell I'm just gonna scream. I don't think it's entirely fair to compare the new combat to the footage from that ill-conceived trailer, since that supposedly wasn't meant to be seen. So just in general, I'll say that it seems okay. Melee weapon impacts and guns sound good, and the ammo count seems low. It looks a little stiff, but serviceable, and that's really all it needs to be. It beats pausing every 3 seconds and baiting the same attack the whole game. I like having to scavenge items from things rather than just picking them up off the ground. I like that corpses still look like James and he just doesn't seem to notice. James drawing on the map when you find a landmark or roadblock is a amazing touch. Speaking of, they seem to have touched James' design up. He looks much younger and less like my dad. The insane stubble was really killing me. Now, a big plus, I am loving this new version of Laura. She's supposed to be 8 years old, but in the original she acted like a toddler most of the time. I can't quite put my finger on what exactly about her new portrayal resonates with me so far. Really, it's just like her whole vibe feels better, more fitting, especially her face. She radiates a more snot-nosed brat energy instead of a child from a Blumhouse movie energy. You know what I mean?
See a fart face!
Moving on, Brookhaven Hospital looks great, like everything else environment-wise. It's familiar with just enough color added in from the sunset coming through the windows to feel fresh. I like Maria's new outfit by itself, but at the risk of sounding like a capital G gamer here, it feels a little odd that a character who is supposed to be explicitly sexualized is dressed more modestly. Fuck, I sound like an asshole right now. I can see echoes of it with her waistband being tight, but maybe... Oh my god, I can't maybe bring back a little midriff? Maybe I feel like a little tightening up here can do wonders. For faithfulness sake, of course, I'm not a fucking gooner. I'm no expert in women's fashion though, so maybe I'm out of line here. I don't know. I really like them moving her butterfly tattoo up to her chest, closer to her heart, but God, I miss the cheetah print. It firmly plants this game's aesthetic in the aughts, and plus it looks better with blood on it. I adore that Maria walks around the hospital on her own now, picking up objects and talking to James while you do your own thing. Makes her feel much more like a person, and hopefully it'll make her creepy personality shift later in the game much more unsettling. Overall, I think Maria is doing great. Also, on the topic of women, Angela. This is the character that I have the most fears over how Bloober is going to represent, as I've explained. And unfortunately, as of now, I can't make statements on it yet, since we see so little of her in this latest showing. But her outfit looks great, even though I wish her eyebrows were a teeny bit lighter. And yes, her face is rounder than it used to be. Despair! Despair! Silent Hill has gone woke! Bloober Team, more like... Gay team, liberals will make pyramid head trans your gender. Woo! If you seriously act like this about a female character's cheeks being a little puffier, splash water on your face and crawl out of your goon cave for a second and realize what you're saying here. I'm so deeply sorry that you don't find the child rape victim fuckable. Maybe you should go do something else for a while, like shower, you fucking loser. Anyway, it also took me a little bit to acclimate to her new look since I've played this game so many times, but it's honestly grown on me more and more while I've been writing this. I just hope they do good by her, since she's one of my favorite characters in any game, and her story is really not something you should fuck around with. Lastly, to end on a high note, I just want to bring appreciation to the nurses. They're great. I love what they're doing here. I love how squeaky they sound. Really, what I'm trying to put across in this video is that I want to give Bloober the benefit of the doubt. They're not setting out to make a bad game or disappoint people with their work, and I don't envy their position. The fact that I'm making a video where I pour over and nitpick details from my video game trailer shows that people are putting them under a microscope for this project. Anything they try to add or change so that they can leave their own mark on the series is going to be scrutinized far more than usual. I tried to keep that to a minimum, but just look what I have to work with in terms of a track record. While I'm trying my best to give Bloober a fair shake, there are serious concerns that Bloober will attempt to try their hand at adjusting the story and themes of the game, and I gotta be blunt, in the process there's a non-zero chance they fuck it up. I want to be wrong. I want to love this game just as much as I love the original, and I hope Bloober delivers. But remember, we've only seen the surface level here. We don't have controllers in our hands to see how it feels, and we haven't heard the key dialogue to see how that goes. There are plenty of things we can dig into later. All we can do now is speculate on what will be printed onto discs this October through the lens of highly produced corporate showcases. Of course they're going to put their best foot forward. I don't know what the full game is like, and neither do you. For the time being, we can hope for the best and try not to be cynical while preparing for the worst. Always remember that even if the remake disappoints, we'll always have the original game to point people to. Bloober seems to be taking this as seriously as they can, and I, for one, as a diehard fan, I kinda like what I see. Let's see if they can live up to this very bold statement. I'm gonna hold you to it, Bloober. Also, fuck you, Konami! Just move to the side, you fucking himbo!